Thank you for joining us this afternoon for this momentous occasion as we launch the Houston Area Urban League Center for Social Justice and Education. While this is a celebration and a culmination of advocacy that has occurred over the past years, it is also a commemoration, a thoughtful commemoration of the untimely demise of Brother George Floyd. As we go through the program this afternoon, we will celebrate the accomplishments of the Houston Area Urban League in standing up the center, acknowledge all of our very generous supporters, but also touch on those deficits that we know continue to exist that allow the movement to remain robust. As we continue to advocate for underserved communities, to provide solutions, and to have difficult conversations with those that support the Houston Area Urban League. Again, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. Without further ado, we'll have comments from our President and CEO, Judson Robinson III.
Thank you, Eric. Wow, what a momentous day. We want to, first of all, just thank you for participating and watching today. We want to welcome you to the center. This place is a place that was a gift of the Oprah Angel Network. We used it to enhance the community in which it sits. This is an area of town in which residents from Katrina, more than 16 years ago, of course, we know about that devastating storm, came to this community, and we built this center, which is here to serve the center in many, many capacities that the Urban League provides. Now it will evolve into a center for social justice and education, and also be the center that has always been to this community and all those that are in the area. So we thank you for putting us in a position to start this new opportunity. This opportunity that, had it not been for the untimely death of George Floyd, we probably would not be here having this discussion with you. But here we are, and just as the Katrina event caused a reaction by the community, the death of George Floyd has caused a reaction for the community. And so we are here today to work moving forward to ensure that as we do the programs that we've always done, that we now expand into this new realm of service to the community. We couldn't do this without the support of our sponsors and our board. Our board chairman happens to be a sponsor of this center. I'd like to ask him to please come forward and also bring his welcome as we thank him for he and Deborah's support of the Center for Social Justice and Education. Calvin Guidry.
Thank you, Judson. Thank you, Eric. Welcome, everyone. We're so proud of today's events. In 1911, I believe, March 29th is when the National Urban League was founded. 1968, the Houston Urban League was founded. Since then, we've had the 64, 68 civil rights legislation, 65 voting rights. And since all of that, the need of the underserved is still here and important. We're so pleased to be able to offer the Center for Justice and Education to our constituents. It is only one step in trying to stop the divide that exists in our country. Parity, that's all we ask for. That's all we've ever asked for. It's the fundamental underpinnings of why the National Urban League and all urban leagues were founded. So again, we want to thank you for your participation. We want to thank our board of directors for their support, but specifically, we would like to thank our supporters for their generous donations to allow all of this to happen. Thank you.
Hello, this is Mayor Sylvester Turner. I congratulate the Houston Area Urban League on the launch of its Center for Social Justice and Education. Our community and the rest of the country must address racial inequities providing justice-related civic engagement education and civil rights navigation. The center will also conduct educational workshops on combating racial inequities and injustice, including inequities and injustice in the corporate workplace. As the mayor of the nation's fourth largest city, I look forward to the implementation of workshops that will provide corporate executives and other participants with a better understanding of racial bias and institutional racism towards employees and citizens in communities where they live and do business. Because we cannot talk about diversity without being inclusive. Thank you to the Houston Area Urban League, President and CEO Justin Robinson III, for turning this vision into reality. I know the Center for Social Justice and Education will have a significant impact on the Houston community.
As part of the launch for the Houston Area Urban League Center for Social Justice and Education, it is critically important that we acknowledge and identify how we have arrived at this point. Certainly, the untimely demise of Brother George Floyd was a litmus test for the global community. The civil and social unrest that occurred here locally and throughout our nation and throughout the world was representative of how people were feeling based on, again, the deficits that continue to exist in underserved communities. We use that term underserved very broadly, but it really speaks to Black people, BIPOC, Black indigenous people of color, individuals that have been disenfranchised, underserved, dismissed, disregarded for centuries. So while we celebrate the Center for Social Justice and Education coming online, it is also an opportunity for us to have conversations that in many cases will be uncomfortable. But based on this discomfort, our objective is that we arrive at solutions. It is also important to understand that through the Urban League movement over the past year, that the national president, President Mark Morial, along with affiliate presidents here in Houston, our president, Justin Robinson, supported by the board, have engaged in a higher level of advocacy. This climate has allowed us to not only provide direct services, but also to parallel that in advocating for all of the issues in education, housing, workforce development, and entrepreneurship that we know exist. Today, we want to have a conversation about that vision, to allow Justin to really thoughtfully present how he came to the realization that a center of this nature would be necessary and relevant in the Houston market. We also then want to hear from Ray Shackelford, who is going to lead and guide those direct services based on a body of work that has existed for over 10 years in community engagement, facilitating census activities, getting out the vote, etc. And then also certainly allow our board member, Mr. Calvin Guidry, not only leading, but also contribute to the dialogue. So with that, gentlemen, let's have a very frank conversation. Judson, I'd really like to start with you, sir.
Well, Eric, thank you, and thank you for your decades of service to the Houston Area Urban League. We've always responded programmatically, making sure that we've got great educational programs and housing programs, workforce development, entrepreneurship, health. But we realize that it's great to programmatically respond, but we've got to be more aggressive as it relates to how we respond from an advocacy standpoint. How do we make sure that our legislators know how we feel about an issue? What are we doing to advocate on its behalf or to educate on working against a bill that's not helpful to the community? How are we ensuring that our young people understand what their rights are if they encounter a police officer? That our adults understand how do we reduce the bias that exists in the workforce today? And what do we need to do to move forward to be proactive in making sure that we don't repeat the practices of the past? So we thought that the center would be a good place to ensure that we're beginning to broaden the dialogue. Certainly we go to Austin every couple of years, and we go to Washington, D.C. every year, and we go as a body, all 90 some odd affiliates throughout the country. and we talk about those issues, but is that enough? That's the question, ladies and gentlemen. Are we doing enough? The Urban League is known for being a movement. We move to where the problems are. George Floyd's death has helped us to realize that more has to be done. And so, about a year and a half or so ago, we began to take more aggressive steps in the area of advocacy. We brought a person in who had come up through the Urban League system as a student, as a client, as an employee, as a person who could understand the issues, understand how our philanthropy worked, understand how our programs work, serve in those programs, and then learn to teach others how to use the skills that he learned to make sure that the community is better informed. Taking that whole process from cradle to career and beyond is part of what the Urban League does. Mr. Ray Shackelford went to Morehouse University, I think like his father did, maybe. Pledged the right fraternity, I'll leave it at that. And also just made it a personal journey every day to learn more about the craft of advocacy. When it came time for the census, he led the charge. And as you know, Texas did better in its census count than most people thought we would. He's advocating for small businesses. And we just read an article the other day about how African-American small businesses are in Houston, in Texas, are actually doing better than the national average. So we're trying to be in those spaces. So, as we move into this discussion, I wanted to just allow Ray to give some introductory remarks, but also to ask him, what's the goal? What do we want to accomplish by opening this center? And what difference would it make with the Houston Area Urban League at the helm of this movement?
Good afternoon, and thank you for that, Mr. Robinson and Eric, to Mr. Guidry, our board member. As he mentioned, my name is Ray Shackelford. I've grown up through the movement literally since the time I was 15 years old, almost 20 years later. Thankful for all the experience, lived experience, going to Washington, D.C., as he mentioned, the ability to lead meetings with members of Congress and the Senate, doing also the same at the state level, providing testimony, whether it's at commissioner's court or city council, around pieces of policy and legislation that will directly impact many of the communities that we serve, that Eric mentioned, whether it's the Black community or the BIPOC community. And, when we look at the goal of the center, we started having this conversation, I want to say almost going back to fall of 2018. And then luckily, or, based on the circumstances and the timing, 2019, that fall, we were able to start our census work and then lead that into the get out the vote efforts for last election cycle. And as Mr. Robinson mentioned, there were some historic accomplishments we were able to achieve as a city, as a county, and as a state when it came to the turnout as well as to the census, even with all the different obstacles that we faced. And so one of the positive things that came out of the death and the murder of George Floyd was the fact that so many people wanted to get involved, wanted to get engaged. And so we wanted to see, what is the best way to do that? We do advocacy on some level, but we need to be more intentional about it. But we also need to empower the members of the community to do the same. And that's what Advocacy U is. It is the cohort, it is the class, the tool to educate the community on how does our city structure work? How does our state structure work? How do you organize and galvanize your family, your friends, and peers around a cause to drive towards meaningful change? We're closing out a legislative session here in the state in about a week, and it's almost a year from when the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act was initially proposed. Since then, almost 3,000 pieces of legislation in about 30 states have been proposed, but very few of those measures have actually been passed. So we have so much more work to do, and we need more people to help us move it forward. And so we have to make sure we're training the community, giving them those tools and resources so that we can fight together and have a much larger force to make sure that we do have change. So in the year to come, you'll see us connecting with a minimum of 1,000 people through the center, looking to train at least 100 different advocates And even beyond that, making sure that at least 75 individuals walk away with some type of skills, education, or resources that they can use to implement and create change. And you keep hearing that word change. That is what that center is about. Where we are today is not where we need to be tomorrow. And it's definitely not where we hope to be in the future. So please support the center, engage with the center, and we're looking forward to creating a better Houston and a better state of Texas.
Ray, thank you so much for that. You know, both of us are beneficiaries of the leadership, the tutelage, and the mentorship that come from both these gentlemen. You know, Calvin, earlier you laid out so thoughtfully the civil rights, the voting rights, and all of those deficits that we continue to experience as a community. I often joke that our objective is to work ourselves out of a job by creating the types of change and solutions that allow our community to really be sustainable. So thank you for that thoughtful presentation. But my question to both you, sir, as the chairman of the board of the Houston Area Urban League, and then to you, Judson, is that as leaders, what does it really feel like when you take a step back and really grasp the magnitude of what has happened over the past year? As African American men in leadership positions, we fully understand the discrimination. We fully understand what it's like to be marginalized or to be disenfranchised. And yet we are tasked with serving leadership. So we don't have the luxury of sitting back. We have to keep it moving forward, which is why they call it the movement. But it is a momentous task to operate in that duality where we're feeling a certain way, but we're serving based on the greater need.
Before I get started on that, I want to thank Ray. What we're trying to accomplish now is very dissimilar to what people understand about us. Our programs, how we go out on the street and actually address the needs of the disenfranchised, the marginalized. But we're doing something a bit bigger with this. We mentioned Ray spearheading for us the census and getting out. He also did it with Get Out the Vote. What we're trying to do now, and what the murder of George Floyd has done for us, is given us the opportunity not only to address it at a grassroots level, but to educate those who are interested at an institutional level, at a systemic level, to try to understand what are the factors within the system that automatically manifest into discrimination. This is what this program will also allow us to do, to reach out to corporate America and others who have impact, in particular, our state legislatures. Today, we are still fighting for the opportunity to vote. What do we do about that? How do we as an organization get out in the streets and say, you can't put enough obstacles in our way to stop us? And make sure that everyone understands this is a systemic and institutionalized policies and procedures that allow for discrimination, disparity. So those are the core issues that we are going to have to address along with the fundamentals with this organization. And I'm so proud of Ray just to be able to get his head wrapped around all of that and to help us put a structure in place that will allow us to do so. So Ray, before we get to Judson, I'd like for you to talk a little bit about the structure of the organization and the multifaceted way we will be challenging the community to learn and to move forward.
Absolutely. So the core structure and element and focus of the center will be those cohorts, educating the community, and that'll be the foundation. I think, as you so eloquently put it, the next step or the next phase is working with our corporate partners on how they can not just move forward and advance many of those statements that they made a year ago or those financial commitments, but how are they actually working to change the corporate environment and how they engage with their employees? When you look at pieces of legislation like the Crown Act, moving away from norms and corporate cultures that are based solely on white America's experience and not other cultures and communities. Also looking to make sure that how they engage with consumers is done in a meaningful and intentional way. You have such a broad array of consumers in today's world, whether it be the BIPOC community, the LGBTQIA plus community, and you have to make sure that you incorporate all of those different elements as you're working with the community and making sure that you're doing so in a substantive manner. And ultimately, we'll be engaging with the youth. That is another component we'll be rolling out within the next year because, it's not enough just to train or retrain the current stable of adults and people on how they think, how they look at bias and anti-racism. But we have to make sure the youth is equipped to go out and lead now. We can't wait. Change is not coming fast enough, and so we have to expedite that process. And so that is the core structure. And I think one other element that we ultimately will roll out is getting feedback on different cases of discrimination and providing resource to the community, whether it's business owners or individuals, on how to best navigate those situations as well.
Now to the deeper question.
The deeper question.
Yes, sir.
Well, it's always about the support of the community, right? Making sure that we're in a position to do the work, making sure that we can grow the organization in this particular space. One of the first programs that the Urban League had was our housing department. It was over 53 years ago. And so 53 years later, our housing department is doing so many more things than it initially did when it was first founded. This center will start out with all the things that Ray mentioned. But as we move forward, we will learn the other issues and we'll be part of the other issues that are so important. Right now our state legislature is looking at making it more difficult for people to vote, quite frankly. They're looking at the results of the last election and seeing what potentially could be done legislatively to ensure that the record turnout from all parties is diminished, especially the party that produced leaders like Ray Shackelford, right? So that's a reality that we have to deal with. Just on yesterday, Sunday, we were talking with LaTanya Floyd. And LaTanya, the sister, the oldest sister of George, I think she's watching today and maybe will give comments later in the program. She mentioned her concern about gun violence. And when we think about the impact of gun violence, especially and particularly in a minority community, we have to realize that creating greater access to guns without a permit now, which is a bill that's currently is sitting on the governor's desk, that the Urban League and this Justice Center has to be just as we were in the streets after the death of George Floyd. We've got to be in the streets before a bill like this gets to the governor's desk, because we know that African Americans die at a greater rate than others when it comes to gun violence. Now, that's a problem that we have to work on as a community. But if we are one community, then we have to ensure that those who are our elected officials represent all of us. So the Center for Social Justice will be that entity that is reminding our elected officials of their responsibility, not to just those that perhaps votes for them, but even those that perhaps didn't. The responsibility of being an elected official is not a responsibility for a lifetime. It is a responsibility for the time in which you serve and to do the best that you can on behalf of all of those that you serve. Justice sometimes does not wear a party hat. And so we, as the Urban League, will move into this space with the help of Roy, our leadership, Calvin, our board, and all of you to ensure that justice is heard, is felt, and is demonstrated.
Turn it over to Mr. Guidry.
Eric, we apologize, but to get back to your basic question, as Black men who've lived through challenges, corporate America, education, walking down the street Black, it is our responsibility to remember those things, but understand we're here to learn. The reason we're here to learn is because though all of the problems that I made mention of has existed for hundreds of years for Black Americans, how they manifest is different. Through technology, formal processes like the legislature, we are affecting institutions, systems, and fundamentals of individuals on the street through methods we haven't seen before. So people like Judson and I, who have a lot of experience as Black men and understand what challenges are in front of organizations like ours, we still have to understand the new techniques that is perpetuating the discrimination, the disparity. So we can not only fight at a systemic level, but at a low technical level to ensure what's bad that's being said is fought against. Well, people like Ray has to teach us that. I've been in the computer business an awful long time, but technology, social media, and those kinds of venues, we have to understand as old people how to bring the appropriate resources to those venues so that we can fight at every level. So we still have responsibilities. We can't ever sit on our laurels, and we have to understand who we can and can't learn from and get direction on how to help leading forward.
You know, Calvin, thank you for that, but you use old, I use seasoned and matured. And we want to, thank you for your leadership and also your direct support as a sponsor. There are many other sponsors that have allowed the center to come online, but not only do you talk the talk, you also then back it up financially. And that is to be acknowledged and appreciated. At this time, there are other sponsors that are to be acknowledged. Judson, Calvin?
I think we might have a video to roll. We certainly want to make sure that you take a moment to acknowledge these great organizations that are making a difference in our community. And as it begins to roll, let me just thank what I call our launching founding sponsor, which was Cadence Bank, a member of our board, that when we talked about this, they jumped at the opportunity. Also, we want to thank HEB, who's been with us for years, been a part of just about everything we do. We're very thankful for them. And then we have new friends like PNC Bank, which, stepped up in a mighty way. So we're thankful for them. But if we have a video to roll, we'll go ahead and do that. Thank you.
Bank in Houston. I am so honored to be here today on behalf of PNC to express our support for the important work being done by the Houston Area Urban League. PNC is proud to donate $100,000 in support of the opening of the Center of Social Justice and Education. The center will be a critical resource to promote empowerment and justice in our community, and it comes at a time when the need and the opportunity to make a difference has never been greater. Each of us has a role to play in combating systemic racism and discrimination, and PNC is committed to driving real change in areas in which we can make the greatest impact. In fact, PNC has a long history of supporting economic empowerment efforts. The bank has earned an outstanding rating under the Community Reinvestment Act since those examinations began more than 40 years ago. We have also been nationally recognized for the impact of PNC Grow Up Great, a bilingual multi-year initiative launched in 2004 that helps prepare children from birth to age 5 for success in school and life, with a particular emphasis on helping children, families, and others in diverse and low and moderate income neighborhoods. Shortly after the social justice protests began nationwide last summer, PNC announced an expansion of its community focus to include efforts to help end systemic racism and support economic empowerment of African Americans and those in low and moderate income communities. The work is about much more than writing a check. It's about PNC doing what it does well, putting our capital to work in the communities we serve, and leveraging our resources to move all forward financially. So I thank the Houston Area Urban League for the incredible commitment to empower communities across Houston through education, collaboration, and awareness. Their work will create opportunities for all our neighbors, helping to ensure they have access to equity and justice. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Myra Caldwell, and I am the Chief Diversity Officer here at Cadence Bank. We are honored to be a part of this special day as together we launch the Houston Area Urban League's Center for Social Justice and Education. In my role at Cadence, I champion diversity, equity, and inclusion and lead a transformative DEI program that seeks to educate, build positive momentum, and affect meaningful change. I am supported by a 50-plus member DEI council comprised of a diverse group of volunteer associates from varying levels and departments. Powered by Cadence's core values of embrace we, do right, own it, and fresh thinking, the council consciously fosters a diverse, equitable, and inclusive workforce with a shared commitment to collaborative innovation, sustainable growth, positive progress for our associates, clients, communities, shareholders, and vendors. I'm honored to do work for a company that intentionally engages in supporting the communities we serve. In addition to our work with the Houston Area Urban League, our $2.5 billion 5-year community benefits plan, which began in 2019, outlines our commitment to providing for the needs of the underserved in low to moderate income communities. We do this through residential mortgages to traditionally underserved persons and communities, loans to low and moderate income and minority borrowers, loans to small businesses and LMI tracts, an increased commitment to volunteer service, grants, and donations. I have been anxiously waiting this day and what it means for our community. The Houston Area Urban League Center for Social Justice and Education will be instrumental in affecting change through education and action to address racial inequities and to provide injustice-related civic engagement education and civil rights navigation. Our journey is a marathon and not a sprint, yet the opening of this influential center is a step in the right direction. I know that together we will be the change that we all seek. Congratulations to the Urban League and thank you.
Hello, my name is Morris Smith, Director of Public Affairs and Communications and Sustainability for Arca Continental Coca-Cola Southwest Beverages. On behalf of our 8,000 employees of Coca-Cola Southwest Beverages, we take this opportunity to congratulate the Houston Area Urban League on launching their new Center for Social Justice and Education. I also have the privilege of serving on the Houston Area Urban League's Board of Directors, which further demonstrates Coca-Cola Southwest Beverages' commitment to understanding the nature of our community's challenges and being a part of the solution. We believe we have a responsibility to strive for greater justice and equity throughout society. Furthermore, supporting the Houston Area Urban League Center for Social Justice and Education is another example of our commitment to inclusion and diversity and social justice. Locally, we support a host of nonprofit organizations and programs that are focused on inclusion and diversity. This support includes national organizations such as the NAACP, the Urban League, LULAC, and local organizations like She is a CEO Foundation and 8 Million Stories, just to name a few. As a company, we believe diversity and inclusion are among our greatest strengths. we are truly honored to support the Houston Area Urban League, which holistically approaches the community's needs. Once again, congratulations to the Houston Area Urban League for making a difference in our communities.
We will have additional sponsors that have supported the launch for the Center for Social Justice and Education, inclusive of those sponsors that were identified, PNC, HEB, Cadence, Coca-Cola.
In addition, we had some other folks that you saw there, but one of the people that we reached out to, that reached out to us, was Jack Moore and his wife. Jack's an individual that, like Calvin, he and Anna Maria thought it was important to make a substantial contribution, just because he and his wife were moved when seeing the tragedy unfold, as we all did on television, and it moved us all to do something. So as we think about what we can do, we can march, we can protest, we can write a letter, we can support the Urban League or some other organization that you think is doing the work. But certainly, no one's done the work, perhaps like the Floyd family themselves. They have become a global icon. They have paid the ultimate sacrifice for the unwanted celebrity that they now have. And, I've seen them out in the field. We've met with them in our building. Just this past weekend, we had a park, thanks in part to supporters of Jack Yates, Chump 88, Carl Davis and his team, and some other justice organizations that thought it important that a green space be initiated so the kids right across the street from Jack Yates High School could have a place to come and play and congregate. And I got a chance to kind of re-meet. She's a person that's pulled on and pulled at in a lot of different directions right now. But Latanya Floyd was there. And I got a chance to say hello to her and remind her that we would be doing this event today, and that her brother was so instrumental in organizations like ours and efforts like this one taking place across the country. And I know our IT is doing its best to ensure that we can maybe get her to just say a few words, but the importance of ensuring that we maintain this momentum is something that a lot of people are talking about. We know that last year, the National Urban League had twice as many sponsors as it did the year before. We know that 51% of the dollars that were raised in the name of social justice. But we also know that in 2021, that number is back down to 5%. So we're potentially back where we started. So I want to encourage Latanya, if she's there, to bring us a word, bring us the encouragement, bring us the need to continue doing the work on behalf of your family, your brother, and the countless other George Floyds that have gone before us, and unfortunately, those that will potentially follow. So Latanya, if you're there.
Okay, I'm Latanya Floyd. I'm a big sister of George Perry Floyd Jr. My family and I are grateful for everything that everyone is doing and has done. We couldn't have walked this walk alone, but that's virtually impossible. We plan to stand for every family. I know for a fact we've never seen anything this horrific. This was a tragedy. And I'm so pleased with the verdict for my brother. I have a habit of getting teared up when I talk about my brother, especially today. It's a very emotional for me and my family. And I thank God for you guys. Now, you're doing and have done. Oh, man, I just don't. I'm overwhelmed with everything everyone has done. People of color, basically of any color, don't deserve that type of brutality, especially from our protectors, alleged protectors. Not all are the same, because if trouble called on me, I'm gonna call on them. But that one particular police officer took a part of my life that I can never get back. I would never understand what was going through his mind when my brother was begging for his life, and he just wouldn't stop. And I've never seen the video. I've told several people in several interviews, never have I ever saw it. I saw him on the ground with handcuffs behind his back, and that's all I could take. But this change that he's made in this world, the impact is remarkable. And you can't question, and I'm sure you all know this, God. You cannot question why it's not an option. Well, we as humans are not perfect, and we ask.
Those raw comments from the Floyd family, I think, are just so salient to the discussion that we've had today. And then more importantly, the fact that, nationally, some of our media channels are celebrating the life of George Floyd. And from my humble estimation, that is a whitewash, because I think the reference points that we've made this afternoon was that it was the untimely demise of Brother Floyd that again was the litmus for this global civil and social unrest. And so the thoughtful acknowledgement of his life is certainly appropriate, but the celebration is actually for those steps that come following, and how organizations like the Urban League will stand in the gap along with the Floyd family to make sure the solutions come to the people that we serve. So gentlemen, thank you so much for your commentary, for the transparency. Ray, thank you for all that you have done and will do. And again, thank you to our sponsors that allowed this to happen, which you will now be presented on the screen, which include, of course, PNC, HEB, Cadence Bank, Sempra Energy, Jack Moore, Ana Maria Nino Mosiah, Arca Continental Coca-Cola, Marathon Oil, NRG, Calvin and Deborah Guidry, Metadata, United, and Wendy's. Again, on behalf of the Houston Area Urban League, I am Eric Goody, and it has been a privilege to be of service to you this afternoon. Thank you again for joining us.